Hey, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
Mm,
How's your day?
My day was not too bad. I'm a little bit tired. That's my pit for today is I have just not been sleeping well. I never sleep well when I work on like projects after the kids go to bed, but this is like the only logical time that I have to work on projects.
Right.
Um, so I need to find a way to like reset my sleep cycle because I've been staying up until like midnight and that's not great for me.
Yeah. I take my sleeping medication and I go to bed immediately after taping.
That does sound. I try not to like use what is it? Starts with an M. Our bodies like naturally make it
Melatonin.
melatonin. There we go. I was like, it's not melanin.
No,
Like, what is
no.
the word I'm looking for? Melatonin. I try not to use that because I know it can like upset like your body's natural balance. But like,
Right.
I took some before we started recording because it takes like an hour or so to like really kick in. Um, so like
Oh,
sometimes if I'm going on like several days of not good sleep, I like
right.
just force a little reset.
Yeah.
So that's my pit for today and my peach. Again, because I feel like I'm just cruising in some kind of low energy a little bit. I found these like delightful canned mocktails. And
Ooh.
now that I'm on a health journey and trying to like be more aware of like, not that I drink a ton before, but especially like
Right.
coming up to summer, I'm like more prone to be like, oh, I'm just gonna like grab a beer or
Yeah.
a like spiked something and just like sip on it or
Hmm.
like nurse a bottle of wine over a week or something.
Right.
So I was just like looking for some fun alternatives and it was like very delightful. It's like this 8 pack for like $25 and the one I had was like
Hmm.
a watermelon mojito and I don't know if the adaptogens actually like mellowed me out or not, but it tasted good and it like,
That's good. As
you
long as
know,
it tastes good, really.
it took I guess like it did what I wanted it to, which was like not to be like, "Oh, let's just add a little vodka to this."
Right, right. Fun fact, I hate watermelon flavored everything.
Really?
Yes, I think it tastes like mowed grass.
That is very bizarre. It is one of my favorite artificial flavors. It's
Yeah,
my
no.
chapstick flavor.
It tastes like somebody fed me a freshly mowed lawn and sprinkled sugar on it.
Noted. I will never,
Never offer me watermelon.
never offer you watermelon. But do you eat real watermelon? Like
Oh, I
the whole
love
fruit?
real
Okay.
watermelon.
Just
Yeah,
not, that's fair. I don't like artificial strawberry. That's how I feel
yeah,
about artificial strawberry flavoring. I'm like, why the fuck? This doesn't
yeah.
even taste like a strawberry.
Right, exactly.
So,
So,
peaches and pits.
peaches and pits. I had a very, very rough day, and I could stand on a soapbox forever. However, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. And my pit is our ever failing healthcare system and how families and mothers specifically are fall through the cracks, and it makes
Mhm.
me fiery angry. And today was one of those days. And so I'm just feeling defeated. I'm feeling like my hands are tied. And for somebody who loves the nonprofit work I do, it's
Mhm.
it's like a visceral reaction
Mhm. Yeah.
to choosing to fund pockets over basic
Mhm.
human needs.
Yeah.
It's very, very frustrating.
Yeah.
So that is my soapbox that I will now step off of.
More on that later. Her email
More
will
on that
be in
later.
the show notes, and you can always just ask
So,
her for her thoughts and opinions in more detail.
yes. So then,
We'll record a bonus episode.
yeah.
And is that allowable? Is that on
Yeah.
brand? Does
You
your
know,
work sign off on that?
I'm not sure that work would sign up. Yeah.
Goal is to also keep the job.
Yeah. I love my job. So then my peaches kind of fits along with my pits because I work for a small nonprofit, so our leadership team is even smaller. Um, and so I today just like really like solidified. We have relatively new leadership. So
Mhm.
it like really solidified that we do have the right people at the table and
Yeah.
do we do have the same values and moral compass and all of these things related to our mission.
Yeah.
And so it was really validating for all of us in leadership while it was commiseration to have
Mhm.
this mutual support of the commiseration and then making sure that we were all on the same team when we now go out to the rest of the organization
Right.
to support and help them navigate how this affects their day-to-day routine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my peaches, is that I have fantastic coworkers.
Well, I'm glad that there's a little bit of a silver lining, but I
Yeah.
wish you could like,
But
maybe
else,
come to that peach through like a less pity way.
I know, right?
No.
That's all.
Onwards.
Onwards and up.
Onwards for today.
Yes.
I believe you guys will work it out and hopefully the wrong is righted.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Spitfire shenanigans. I'll take this one. In December, I've got quite a few from the month of December because we had
Because
Caroline so much.
right, right.
um, so one of my favorites
For
though.
context, I had major spine surgery
Yeah.
in December, and so I'm very lucky to have such wonderful friends who and children who have such wonderful friends who can take care of my children while I lay up in bed recovering from spine surgery.
Yes. So it was dance night and we picked up Caroline and we're headed to dance and Nora has had this song that just like kind of runs on repeat. And I think what it is, I think it's like a sample of an older song. I don't know. I've got a very far down on my list of things to investigate in life,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain in some way it's like a sample from like an older song. Um, how old, what decade, I do not know.
Yes.
Um, that has been sampled into like something that was on the radio potentially. Otherwise, I have no idea like where this song comes from. Anyway, it goes like, oh no, oh no, oh no, 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 no.
Oh, no, it's a TikTok thing.
Okay, I assumed
It's
it
a tick.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's a TikTok sound.
Oh, okay. Well, that shows you how out of touch with the youths I am because
All of us millennials.
I, um,
I only know
I,
that because my girls are older than your girls.
right. Okay. Fair, fair.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like when Hudson had to educate me about what the gritty was.
Oh,
And
yeah, I got that lesson like last week.
yes. So
Yeah.
anyway, just an out of touch millennial here, I guess. But anyway, so that like song, I am still fairly certain that it's in like an actual song. Maybe
It
I'm just
could
saying
be.
that to make myself feel better. But anyway, so that's like a thing that like they would um like constantly be like playing on the Alexa. And so like Caroline gets in the car and they start like singing this song. And at first it's just them like singing it together. And then it changes into like this for the 15-minute drive to dance class, changes into basically like an improv character, two act play of direction to each other and then like vocal coaching. and so and so like so whichever one started it goes, um, okay, now let's do it like we are cats. And so then it's like, oh meow, oh meow,
Oh,
oh meow, meow, meow. And then like I think it was Caroline goes, okay. So then they start like coaching each other and directing
Right.
each other. And Caroline's like, okay, now do it like you are so mad. And Nora's like, oh no, oh no. Like it is. And Caroline at one point like stops her and goes, I think it would be more like, and then like,
Oh my gosh, of
and and then
course.
they like coach each other back and forth. And they're like, no, no, like follow me, and they like would
Yes.
do their little like vocal inflections, and then like the other one would try to copycat, and they'd be like, no, it's more like like it
Oh
cracked me up
man.
because just like listening to them coach
Right.
each other, and then like this wide range of like
Yeah. But
random
also
emotions that they
like
assign to it.
it's two coaches. There's no players involved in
There's
this scenario, which is like the problem.
right. Yes. And again, once again, how does it all fit into one friendship? Like,
I have zero ideas.
um, I mean, I will say I'll give them credit. I feel like they did both take some direction well.
That's good.
I think they must just take enough from each other that like
Right.
that's what
That it
maintains
validates.
it.
Yeah.
That they're like, okay, I'm not totally gonna hate her because like she did follow my direction one time.
One time.
That's all you need is one time.
That's true.
True
So
in many scenarios in
and
life.
so many, so many.
So that was the little
I love
that's my Spitfire story. They were just it was too funny, like listening to them vocally coach each other through what I now know is a TikTok sound.
Oh geez.
Okay, so partner praise.
Partner
What's yours
praise.
today?
So Jesse is less patient than I am. Like that is just a fact. And it's something that like he verbalized to me that he would like to work on. And like in the day-to-day small things, especially this morning when Caroline was really, really pressing the buttons, getting ready for
Mhm.
school. I could see like the intense effort Jesse was putting in to
To not
maintain,
totally losing it.
to totally just not like losing
Yeah.
his, because she was being completely ridiculous and irrational. And
What?
yesterday, all of her underwear fit her. Today, zero underwear fit her
Which is a
because
problem because I
she
know
goes,
she has to be totally dressed to get her gummy bear before she comes
yes.
downstairs. So
Um,
that's a
she
problem if your base layer doesn't fit
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah. The first reason was because um, she's 6 now. Her birthday was in November.
Right. It's been that way for a little
She'd been
while.
6.
So that
Yeah.
doesn't check.
And so then it was, well, these ones feel funny on my butthole. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not wearing a thong and so it doesn't like touch your butthole. And so then she had to like reframe it to
Follow up
like,
question.
okay,
How is it getting to your butthole?
yeah. And so then she was like, well, no, it feels funny on my vagina. I'm like, okay, that's a fair assumption.
Okay.
So with 3 girls in the house, you can imagine how many pairs of little underwear I have and brands and cuts and varieties and colors. I literally offered her like 15. And by that point, like it was, I need to get ready for work because I have a big day ahead of me. And so I tapped Jesse in. I was like, I need you to come. And
FYI, we're still on underwear. So
yeah, yeah. And so like I could see him like really like it was almost like his like breath in like okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm a big boy. She is not my boss. But like that's literally what you have to do as a parent sometime is like you have
right.
to be the calm against the most irrational
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
problem
100%.
in the world. But yeah, so I love that he like continues to work on that and like it's very clear that it was a goal he set for himself and he has continuously worked to improve it.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of him.
It's hard. I'm proud
It's
of
so
that
hard.
too.
Because most of the time I just want to chuck her through a window. Yeah. No.
Okay, I've got the next Spitfire story too.
Perfect. All right. What's Eric done good lately?
So Hudson, at his parent teacher conferences a few weeks ago, the feedback was like, hey, he knows his multiplication, but he doesn't know it at like, it's not, like second nature. He has to like pause. And so basically, like, as they're moving into like more complex math problems, making sure that he can like rattle off his multiplications, specifically sevens, eights, and nines.
I was gonna say it's the 7/8, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Like she was like, it would really help him. She was like, it would just make it faster for him, which would reduce some frustration that he's been having. So we got flashcards in the mail this week, and Eric and Hudson were working on them at dinner time the other night, and it was just like it was such a good moment. Like, he taught Hudson this trick I didn't even know about, like how to get your answer for the nines
Yeah, the
tables.
finger trick.
No, it wasn't the finger trick.
It was
It
it?
was, I mean, maybe, I don't know, but basically, like whatever you're multiplying by nine, you take one away. So, like 9 times 8. So, one less than 8 is 7. And then to get to 9, it's the second number is 2. 9 times 8 is 72. 8 minus 1 is 7. 7 plus 2 is 9. So your answer is 72.
Well, color me
Fucking
crazy.
shocked, right?
You were
I was
right.
like, I was like,
No,
well, I could have done that shit. Like, why didn't any?
I feel like my nines are better because of this.
Right, right. So anyway, I mean, like they were very like he was very patient, and he had all these like really great like tips and tricks. And I felt like Hudson left the entire interaction like the night before he had like lost his shit over it. And then like it was just such a 180, and Eric did such a good job like walking him through that. And I think even just like mastering just the nines, it was
Yeah.
like, holy cow, dude, you're like a third of the way done with what you needed to work on. So it was just a
Right.
really nice um, moment for him to use. He is an instructor in his day job, and he was studying to be a teacher before he took this. So like he has sort of that natural ability to teach, and it was just nice to like see them work
You see
together.
that shine through.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. All right. So
what do
today
so what are we digging into?
we're digging into learned helplessness, the dad privilege, and maternal gatekeeping.
So learned privilege or learned helplessness is like one of my favorite terms. I use it in literally all facets of my life
I mean, because it's pretty
because
accurate. Like our kids do it,
stand it.
everybody around, like, yes,
Yes, it is the salt to my wound.
yes.
I absolutely cannot stand it.
Yes. So learned helplessness is this idea basically that you learn to be helpless. Like just like we learn certain behaviors that are positively impactful to those around us, similarly, we can learn behaviors that are less positively impactful and basically turn us into um the best example I can think of is like when Nora was maybe like 4 years old or something, like clearly old enough to walk up and down the stairs by herself, she
Hmm.
stopped and would sit at the top of the stairs and scream. And like inevitably, because usually when we are going down the stairs, we are trying to go somewhere,
Hmm.
and so then, like, somebody would come back and grab her. Well, over time, she learned to be
We've learned.
helpless and
Yeah,
would just sit there because she knew somebody would come and get her. And she's like, well, I don't have to like fucking try anymore. I'm just going to,
exactly. Exactly.
I'm not going to dress myself because if I lay here long enough,
Then someone
someone will
will
come
dress me.
in and will dress me.
Yeah.
And as adults, we learn behaviors like that too. And so that learned helplessness kind of leads into this idea of the dad privilege, which is basically like according to the internet, is when and everything on the internet is true.
Yeah.
Um, it's when dads are treated like heroes and they get praised for doing the same shit that we do. Like, oh my gosh, you took your kids to the park? That's so sweet. Or like, oh, you picked them up today? That's awesome. It's like, yeah, I do that every fucking day.
Right.
But you would never like say that I'm such a good mom because I took my kids to the playground, kind of a thing. I also sort of define this as, so this is like my own personal add on to this about, I kind of think of dad privilege also in terms of, and probably more so because I don't think anybody's ever complimented Eric on something like that, which maybe that makes us an anomaly.
Well, and so maybe, yeah, I don't know actually, because Jesse actually gets it a lot. And I wonder sometime if it's because our oldest three are girls or the fact that we have
Oh,
four
yeah, sure.
versus the two and a half, three that we're supposed to have
Right,
and that our
right.
world is made for.
That, yeah,
But I bet it is like Jesse being a dad of girls.
yeah, I could see that. I could see that. I think because I've got a mixed group when I go
Right,
out.
right.
Um, and also, I guess maybe like I'm obviously not there. Like it hasn't ever been impactful enough that like Eric would be like, "Oh my gosh," he's never come home to be like, "You would never guess what somebody said to me." Um, so I also kind of think of dad privilege in the context of their ability to just do things in their lives without considering like the bigger family picture or schedule. And it looks like coming home from work and like taking your shoes off and just throwing them by the shoe rack and going up and like sitting in your room and scrolling through your phone for like 20 or 30 minutes while you decompress
From your day.
from your day. Meanwhile, like, I've left work and went straight to pick up kids and came home and started making dinner right away and have like not stopped moving.
Yeah,
Or like sleeping in when you get like a poor night's rest, as if like on the flip side of the coin, moms never get a shitty night's sleep. Like,
right.
I hear this from my friends a lot. Like, I could never just like turn my alarm clock off and be like, I didn't get a good night's sleep, so his alarm will go off, and I will just lay in bed without communicating that I didn't
Yeah,
get a good night's sleep, and stay there undisturbed, and like
yes.
get an extra hour of sleep or something. So that's kind of like when I think of the idea of dad privilege, it's sort of like this ability to walk through the world in sort of like um in a way that's like agnostic
Yes.
to the family unit, and then they get like praised for doing
For being in the family unit.
for being in the family unit, where you're like, well, wait a minute. I
Yeah,
mean, what about me? So basically, like the bar for dads is set really low. It's like, don't suck.
right.
And it's really high on the mom side of things. Like,
Absolutely.
if you don't have an Instagrammable house and children, then basically like you're a failure. And
Yep.
we're not even sure why you left the hospital with
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah, no, there was one week specifically. It was when Warren was much younger, like an in arms type infant. And it was the same week Jesse and I made separate trips with all four children.
Mm.
And the beginning of the week, he got like two compliments on this one Target trip saying like, oh my gosh, like the crew or something to the
Yeah, yeah,
effect
yeah.
of like, look at you being all dad. And
Mhm.
later on that week, I took four and I had one comment of, boy, you sure have your hands full. You know what causes that? And I'm just like,
Are you
are
talking
you
about my
asking about
sex
my sex
life?
life?
What?
Yeah, yeah.
What?
And with four kids, we get comments all the time like, you know what causes that? Do you guys own a television? And I'm like, it's literally one more than you.
I've literally like never,
Yeah,
I would never think to say that to someone.
yeah.
I
But
mean,
yes, like in that one week, we were in literally the exact same situation.
yeah,
And I mean, it's uncanny that it happened in one
right.
single week.
So close.
Like
Yeah.
that's unusual. But it just like, it like was such a real life moment of like, well, shit, I did the exact same thing. And I'm basically told I look overwhelmed.
Right.
And you are like, oh my God, you're so great. Love you.
No offense. I want to punch you in the face on behalf of.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yes.
so dad privilege
I
occurs both externally and internally,
in
I think is
internally.
what you're trying to say.
Yes, 100%. And I think, I don't know, I don't think we experience it as much externally as we do internally.
Internally.
And maybe it is because like we only have one less child than you guys.
Right.
But
But we are the big family now
right, right,
because now we don't fit into all cars as a family.
right.
Flying across the country is absorbently expensive. Um, but yeah, like for whatever reason, like four kids is way more than three.
Right. Which
Where
I mean,
three kids is not that much more than two.
yeah, it is not like this
Yeah,
exponential like
gain.
hockey stick chart of overwhelm
Yeah,
once you get I mean, once you start adding on kids, it's a little bit more incremental, I guess is kind of what I'm saying.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think that is super interesting because I like am thinking back to my own experiences and I feel like don't I mean I have never ever gotten a comment about like implying that I have like too many kids or
Yeah,
like that my sex life is too active because of the
right.
number of kids. I think that is like the most bizarre thing I have ever I don't know, where are those people's filters?
They
I
lack that.
I
That's what they are.
do yes, they're gone.
They're gone.
I mean, I think I've gotten probably like mixed, like a little bit of like, oh my gosh, you like have your hands full.
Hmm.
But generally my kids seem to like charm the pants off of lots of people. And so it's like they can be little hellions, but then they like angel pose at like strangers walking by and they're like, oh
Please.
my God, they're so cute. And I think Willa kind of
Yeah, no, Willa is like,
bringing up the caboose there. She's
yeah,
still like, she's in this like super cute phase. And so
yes.
I feel like people kind of overlook
Anything
the
else?
chaos and they go, oh my God, she's so
Look at that
cute.
little girl.
Um, but
Warren's older, like only by six
only
months,
by 6 months.
but he's gone from like the cute little toddler phase into the
Yes.
honey badger phase.
Yeah. He has
And so
transitioned.
he
If it
has.
makes you feel any better, Will is like right behind. And her her default of transition attitude and behavior is Nora's.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. I love that for you.
Yeah.
That should be fun.
But she still sort of has Hudson's disposition, so it's kind of this funny like she huffs and she puffs, but it doesn't like fit her personality. So it just is sort of this like comically out of place
I love it.
um feeling out. But this idea of the dad privilege is counterbalanced with, and I have gotten this feedback quite a bit in my relationship, and it's something that I know like I've had to work on. And the flip side of that coin is this idea of like maternal gatekeeping, which is essentially that like, and this stems from societally, if that's a word, what we believe about women, which is basically that whether or not the father is involved,
Hmm.
how good or how bad the father is in the relationship, basically, like the mother always knows best.
Yes.
So whether they're in really healthy, um, share like mutually responsible relationships with their children, or in a situation where maybe the mom is abusive or struggles with addiction or something that, makes it difficult or makes her unable to like properly care for her child, like we still as a society, like even in those instances, a dad would go to court and would fight for
Right.
would have a harder time fighting for rights to his child than the mother would. Um, and additionally, I mean, we are raised to believe that our value, we are validated through knowing that our way is the right way to raise our kids. And
Yes.
so, like, this programming that we go through as women as we grow feeds into this idea and cements it for us as well that like we know best. And so then the flip side of this coin is basically we behave in ways that, maybe we speak poorly about dads in front of our children, or we decide whether or not we keep dads up to date on the details, the ins and outs of like school and appointments and things like that.
Right.
And, ultimately, then what this kind of creates is this idea or this like perception that our way is the right way to do things. And I think, it starts really when babies are very little, right?
Yes.
Because dads are forced to go back to work very quickly most of the time. There's not a lot, it's becoming a little bit more common to hear of companies who offer longer paternity leaves, but a lot still just sort of offer those 2 weeks. And so it kind of starts with like, we are in the trenches day to day. So we know like, this is that cry, this is what this cry means. And like, this is, we know the ins and outs of the child's behavior. And so we make it difficult for dads to step in, like we kind of helicopter and then we start to correct and micromanage and basically like, dads start to disconnect and step away because they're like, well, clearly you've got this. So, like, what
Right.
am I here for?
Absolutely.
And this is something, I mean, I feel that critique like to my core,
Same seas.
being somebody who, and I've mentioned this before, Eric and I are both um, people manager people. Like we don't necessarily have to manage other people, but we have no qualms about managing other people. And we do generally think our way is the right way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if we're not arguing about things related to the mental load, it's generally us, having to remember that the other person might also have a way to get it done that could potentially be better or more effective or more efficient than ours.
That's so funny because so Jess and I identified this early on because, like, in our relationship, he was raised in a household where, like, you own your way and your way is the right, like, his dad is very like my way or the highway.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that was modeled for him. And so that's what he learned. And so there was this, there were these situations that would come up where, like, the goal was the same and we both got there in a timely, efficient
Yep.
way, but I
Yep.
did mine differently. And so then he would provide me critique on my way.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
it was like,
Infuriating
it
because you're
was
like, but
so
I got
weird.
there and it was
But like,
fine.
right. And so that was something very early on in our relationship that we were like, that was low hanging fruit for us. Like, it was, we were very quick to identify it. And then we both have been good about like making sure that that's in check before we do stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but something that I was thinking while reading through all of this episode was that because of the way that we're raised with societal pressures, um, that we're taught from a really young age that our worth and value comes from the home we keep and the kids we raise.
Yeah.
Like, that's the women's work, that's that gendered role. And so essentially, we feel like we have more at stake in the product, and the
Mm-hmm.
product is our child,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
since their value isn't as closely related to the child themselves and how the child
That's a
acts
great
and
point.
and so like I just kept thinking like, well, of course I'm more worried about making the right choices for the family or the gravity of the choice
Mhm.
because my
It's a
name's on the
reflection
line.
of you. Yeah.
It's a reflection of me
Yeah.
from a society standpoint, when really it should be a reflection of the both of us because we're
Yeah.
both parents. But yeah, that was something that I kept coming back to. Is like, well, that's not fair.
No, I think that is a really great observation. And I think it really crystallizes kind of what I have felt as I've been reflecting on this topic and kind of thinking back on my own behavior and things like that. It 100% comes back to um, knowing that if somebody is gonna judge, they're gonna judge me,
Me.
and
Yeah.
you know they're gonna. It's funny that you say that because now um, I think about as we are going through. So Hudson's on this baseball team, and it's like a more competitive team than the Y teams he's been on in the past, and there's like a learning curve and there are new rules that we have not learned in baseball yet that like competitive teams play by, and like there's just a lot more mechanics and technicalities
Right.
that go into it. And it's funny because like sometimes, and Hudson um very much has Eric's personality and that he is like not afraid to say what is like on his mind.
Hmm.
um, and so sometimes that looks like arguing with refs or and not in an asshole
Aggressive
belligerent
way.
way. Yeah.
Right.
Just in the way that a 9-year-old is like,
Right.
bruh, like, why did you
Right.
tell me that? Or
Right.
like, oh,
Right.
come on, that wasn't really,
Yeah.
I
Like I'm
think you made,
safe.
yeah, that wasn't the right call, or, like Eric said at batting practice the other day, he, had a couple of strikes thrown against him and the coach called him as strikes. And he goes, I couldn't swing at that, and got like frustrated, and kind of like, it's more of like a negotiation. It's like, how
Yes.
far can I negotiate you into like it less arguing and more of a negotiation? Anyway,
Yeah.
my point is that when I have like witnessed those moments, like at flag, when he did it at flag football the other day too, he like argued with the ref for a second about some call I couldn't even hear. And I was like mortified. I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, Hudson, stop. And really, I wasn't even, I mean, I was thinking a little bit like, but you don't want that, like, you don't want the ref to think that you're like,
A jerk.
the jerk kid that like, so then he calls everything against you.
Right.
But I will say, I think if I'm being honest, I was more like, I don't want those parents to think that I raised that kid. you know,
Exactly.
that I raised the
Exactly.
jerk kid. And like how, I mean,
I mean, if Caroline goes out with her hair unbrushed, which, like, let's be honest, like, it's really difficult to brush Caroline's hair. So if she does a half-ass job, like, I'm gonna let it slide a lot of the time.
yeah, yeah,
But when a stranger sees that, they're not gonna think, "Oh, why didn't Dad brush her hair?" They're gonna think, "Why didn't
right.
Mom brush her hair?"
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
time.
I think that when Nora wears mismatching outfits. So
Oh, I give zero
I
about that. That shit drives me
I mean,
bonkers.
I don't anymore. Like I took a stance like very early on, even though it is like a giant internal struggle for me to not be like, let's reconfigure this to
Right.
something that does not look like we shopped at the clown store today.
Right.
Um,
Like,
but
sparkles and glitter doesn't match glitter.
it
Let's
does
maybe throw a solid in there.
it does not. Or more often than not, it's like, oh, those camo pants do not go with that tie-dyed
Yeah.
sweatshirt that you've got.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I took this position early on with all of my kids where I was like, I don't want to make them feel self conscious
Yeah.
about what they choose to dress in. And if that makes them feel happy and confident and it creates a level of independence for me in the morning from having to pick out clothes and argue over which outfit they really want to wear, then like that is just a hill I am not going to die on. So you
Yep.
go for it. now as a 6-year-old, a kindergartner, she like still goes to school sometimes in camo pants and a tie-dyed shirt, or,
Right.
the most ridiculously like sweatpants with like her Easter dress over them. And and I'm like, well, I mean, it wouldn't be my choice. Doesn't
Yeah.
really go together, but I like maintain. But my thought is always like, one, now that she's in school, it has flip flopped. I do think, like, I hope nobody makes fun of you for that because
Hmm.
I don't really see other kids going to school like that. I'm sure they are
My
there, but
kids are. We
okay.
just need to
Well, that's
redist.
why ours are friends.
Yeah. That's just need to redist.
um, but I also, on the flip side, I also think, well, anybody who sees her is probably gonna be like, what was that mom thinking?
Yeah.
She not know how to teach her kids how to dress? Why
Right.
didn't she course correct that? When
Yeah.
really, I think I've got a solid rationale about why I let it
Absolutely.
happen.
Like
But
I'm
even if I
confident.
didn't, even if I was like, I'm just fucking lazy and I don't care, that should be good enough.
Yeah. But like it's always like if there is something quote unquote wrong with the child and how they act, how they dress,
Yeah.
all the things,
Yeah.
nobody's ever saying, "Where's dad?"
Right. Yeah.
Everybody's always saying,
Where's
"Where's
mama? Yeah. Yeah. And so that is, and I think that kind of sums up the dad privilege, right? Where you
right?"
get a, again, like you get praise for being part of the family unit, but you get to sort of behave like agnostically. Nobody's
Yes.
going to, no one's going to judge your kid's uncombed hair against you. It's going to be kind of on us. And
Hmm.
then the flip side of it is this maternal gatekeeping. And I know we're kind of like going back and forth between these, but again, like that is something that I feel to my core that, like I look back and I go, I wish I had known about that and thought harder about the impact of my
Yeah.
actions as a new mom, which is just like ridiculous because it's, I mean, this is sort of like the kind of knowledge that I feel like only seasoned
Yeah.
veteran moms know, right?
100%.
Like we're a little bit more grizzled
Yes.
than the brand new
Yeah.
20-something mom with like her cute
We're
little,
a chopstick, not a fillet.
yeah, yeah. We are left. We are a little bit like leftovers. And
Yeah.
she's like, she's got her cute little outfits on and her one kid is like pulled together and she has her shit together and she's like going out and, you know,
Doing all the things.
doing all the things. And it's like, look at my cute little like buddy that I am bringing along with me. Like that's
Uh-huh.
very much how I felt when I first had Hudson. And what I
Yeah. Same.
didn't think about like is very early on the fact that I knew I was upset about like the dynamic once Eric went back to work. I was upset with the dynamic, not because I felt like he created it. It was just like very like it was the circumstances. I was upset with the circumstances of it. And then I very quickly became the mom who was like, no, not like that. No, not like that. No, not like that. And then that sort of like turned into like everything else where it's like
Mhm.
now when you clean the kitchen, it's like not like that,
Yeah.
And like there's this meme where it's like my toxic trait is that I get angry when people don't help me clean, but then when they help me clean, it's not the way that I would clean. And
Absolutely.
that is a critique I get often. Um, Although again, after our last little like conversation, I did point out that like when I say, can you please clean up the kitchen after dinner, it doesn't mean just loading the dishwasher. It does have to include
All of
wiping
the
off the
other.
counters because like we have very little counter space. So if it's dirty, then when I come in to make snacks, there is nowhere for me to make snacks. And then I
Right.
have to clean before I can make snacks. So like,
Yes. For
but anyway.
me, it always feels really like unintentional. But now that like I've
Mhm.
done this self-reflecting and I'm aware of it, I like catch myself doing it literally just yesterday. Jesse 100% called me out on it and I was like, fuck, damn it. like, oh, I didn't mean to do that.
What were you doing?
I was planning these like social events for our kids
Mm-hmm.
because like this mom needed a favor because um like her kid, she didn't sign her kid up for kids club one day or something like that, so she needed
Sure.
help. And then another mom for a different kid had to take the older sister to an appointment, so it's just easier to leave the other kid home. So I'm scheduling all of these things. I don't work from home, my husband does.
Mm,
So, and it's not like he minds, like,
right, right.
but
But you're sort of
so,
signing him up for more work.
but like I was just like I wasn't filling him in at all. Not
Yeah,
because I didn't mean to.
right.
It was just like I didn't fill him in because I knew all of the moving pieces. And so
Yeah.
like it was fine. And so we had friends over on Monday after school. And then we had friends over on Tuesday after school, but then we also had an extenuating circumstance of like a practice at the same time that the friend then inevitably had to go to. And
Mm.
then we had one of our children going to a play day after school today. And then we have another child coming to our house due to a childcare situation. And yesterday, when Jesse was we're like running through our week, and I was saying, well, Fiona's going over to Amelia's after school tomorrow, and then Amaya's coming Friday because it's a childcare issue. And he was like, and when were you going to tell me about all these kids in our house when I'm going to be
Right,
home?
right.
And I
Meanwhile,
was,
Jesse's like, 1, 2, 3, 4,
yeah.
more
And so,
than 4.
and
You
so I was
don't
just
belong
like,
here.
crap, because he doesn't care that the kids are there. Like,
Yeah,
really, it really just actually helps him because it keeps our kids out of his hair while
yeah.
he's trying to work. But it's like this really like unintentional way of like
Mhm.
removing him from the situation.
Yeah.
So then, like, well, he doesn't need to know everybody's friends because Angela's going to do it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, he totally called me out last night, and I was like, crap.
Yeah, I feel like mine is a lot, it is a lot more related to I prefer things done a
A
certain
certain way.
way, and again, going back to the idea that, like, I'm the one being judged. I have been, like, I have always sort of subconsciously, even though it is, like, shitty to admit, like, believe that, like, my way is the better way because I
Yeah.
do know, I'm like, I have literally been with these kids, like, nonstop. So,
Yeah.
like, why would you not just defer to me for, like,
Right.
everything? And then I get, and in, like, my most bitter moments, and again, none of this is stuff that I am proud of, and I am like, it has taken, it's been
It's a lot of,
conversations. Yes,
yes.
it has been many, many conversations. This is like self-awareness that, comes from having been together for 12 years and, having a kid
Hmm.
who's our oldest is 9. Um, so then even in like my most bitter or resentful moments, I'm like, well, if you're just going to sit around and like scroll through your phone, then like who are you to come in here and act like you've solved the world's problems when like you leave me to deal with this every single day by myself, like
Right.
very, very, that's usually about like the breaking point. And
Yeah.
like an argument is coming when,
Yeah. Yeah.
mentally you're in that headspace because you're like, well, now I just know that I'm going to like be a dick about this and
Right.
pick a fight. And yeah, so I think for me, that is a lot of times where like my gatekeeping tendencies come in. And it's usually when I'm like starting to feel like neglected or unappreciated
Hmm.
or, just like taken for granted. And then, it just, I'm not like consciously keeping score, but you can bet that like my subconscious is like, and there's
Right.
another time. And remember that one time when? And I'm like, oh my God, you're right.
You're
And
right.
and so that, it's
Yeah.
really, it is two sides of a coin, right? Like, and so then that sort of creates this question of
The chicken or the egg.
the chicken or the egg. Like, do we create the dad privilege
Right.
through our maternal gatekeeping? Do or do
Are
does
are we
the
maternal
maternal are we
gate
maternal gatekeeping because you are
to
using your
spite the
dad
dad
privilege
privilege?
card? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's no right answer. I think it's just
Yeah.
like a self-serving cycle
Mhm.
that like both parties involved have to consciously make an effort to break down.
Yeah. 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 Oh man, it's hard.
It's really hard.
Yeah, this is
And it's
uh
interesting that our differences in maternal gatekeeping are different.
mm,
Because when I think of dad privilege, like I do think of like a very overarching, like this fits most dads from
yeah.
a privilege standpoint. But I do feel like there's a it's more complicated maternal gatekeeping. I don't know if I'm articulating it how I want to, but um,
Yeah, because the dad privilege is learned. It's that learned behavior. Whereas
maternal
I,
gatekeeping,
maternal gatekeeping, I feel like, is programmed into you from early on. Like I mean, I guess you could, well, I don't know. Oh my gosh. I don't know.
right?
I think I'm gonna argue my way out of this because I was just gonna say, like, as a young girl, you watch your mom, you learn, like, because
Yeah,
she's modeling the behavior, but so is dad.
right.
Yeah, you're right. It is. I don't know. I don't
There.
have a good answer for it. It
I
has,
think until you both make a resolution to knock
yeah,
it off or do the best you can at knocking it off, like it's just going to keep feeding itself.
yeah. It is that level of like self awareness
Yeah,
that you both have to bring to the table, and I think that's why it's hard because that is. I mean,
it's a level of emotional intelligence
it
that
really
like
is, and
not everybody
it
is.
is a hard pill to swallow
Mhm.
to be like, especially I think because we feel so like harshly judged from
Yeah,
outsiders looking in. For me to be like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna give up control of this and I'm gonna let you
right,
do it your way, even though I can see a bunch of ways it could go better.
right.
Like,
Because
but
we have more
even
because we have more at stake.
yes. And
Because our
even
values like
then, even the way like that I teed that up, it's like another layer of self-awareness to not be like, because I can see a better way. You just go like, yeah, you've got this. And then you just like have to
yeah,
put your blinders on and be like, I really am making a conscious effort here
uh-huh,
to I'm not gonna judge. I almost have to not pay attention because
right,
like if I look at I'm going to micromanage. If I watch this process from the outside, it's going to be like coming to a performance review when you get to bed that night. Like I'm going
let's review
to
your KPIs for this year, dear.
Yes. Okay. So here were our main goals. And remember, these were our benchmarks we were
Yeah,
aiming for. And here's how that who
yeah,
wants to be in a real, like, you can quickly see how relationships like unravel at
yes,
this. And because who wants to be micromanaged or judged one way or the like on both sides of the coin.
right.
Nobody wants to feel that way, but I think
And
it's
then you're supposed to have sex
especially
with them.
easy.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So like,
And I think it's easy as mothers to be like, I've got this long list of critiques here and I would like you to just sit down and take it. Whereas like I don't know that the feeling is mutual. I'm sure he has a long list, but I'm sure he's like, whatever.
right.
She's a great wife.
Yeah. Because we have more at stake. Like at the end of the day, that
Yeah.
is why.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not that I don't know, they just don't have as much at stake in this whole parenting gig because of the way that society views mothers.
Right. Which I mean, it's really unfortunate.
It is. It's awful.
Not because it sucks for moms. It absolutely does. But again, like that level of maternal gatekeeping and like we've talked about in general, men have a stake in helping lighten the mental load because it leads to richer relationships with their wives, richer relationships with their children, and just like an overall more fulfilling experience and more connectedness for them. I mean, there's so much for them to gain from this,
Yes.
but like it sucks that to some extent, like we kind of continue that cycle and we feed it, and we, through that gatekeeping, teach them to disconnect and
Yep.
disengage, like, so again, it is kind of the chicken and the egg. Because we have so much at stake, we start to behave this way, and then they learn to disengage and disconnect, and then we're upset about the mental load, and it just goes in this awful
And yeah.
cycle. But
And then it's a merry-go-round we all went off of.
right, right. I would like to exit this ride
Yes,
immediately.
immediately.
I am not tall enough to ride it. Please let me off. So this whole conversation kind of begs the question, like, how do we change this, right? And I'm going to say, like, some of these were things that I googled, like, how do you change this dynamic?
Hmm.
And some of it I feel like is just, again, things that, like, having been in the trenches for a little while, it's stuff that I wish like somebody would have told me when I
Yeah.
was a new mom, to be like, just fucking let that shit go.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
get get over this. Um, one of them, one of the suggestions was that I found was aim for peace and not perfection. And I think
I love that.
I do, yes, I do love that idea. And again, things that I'm like, I was a little bit like too high strung early on in motherhood to probably let that
Oh, it's
sink in
oh,
and
100%.
be able, but I think about it. I kind of chuckled because I was like, again, like our personalities. So, we bought our house. It was built in the 70s, and we knew when we moved in that every area of this house was going to have to get touched. It was straight out of the 70s and had not been updated since then. And that's the only reason we could afford to move into this house. Our friends would pull up
You
and they'd be like, damn. And we were like, no, no,
no,
wait
no.
until you see the inside.
Yeah, yeah. You
You've
win
never
some, you
seen
lose some.
so much shag carpet and so much wallpaper in your life.
Yeah.
Um, and so I remember distinctly, like before we had kids, one of our favorite things to do was to like go to random open houses and just sort of like collectively dream about what our someday home would be. And then we bought this house and we were like, oh my God, our dreams are going to come true. Why we thought that, like,
Silly, silly you.
silly you. Homeownership is a trap.
It is a trap.
Um, but and I remember like we go through like the ideation phase so well together, and we get so excited and there's so much possibility, and then it comes time to execute, and that's where like the train goes off the tracks. And after like a few years of this, several projects deep in this house, we're painting our hallway. And one day it just occurred to me, I was like, what if you just like let him take the lead? Just go for peace. And even if you think there's a better way, just fucking do what he says.
Yeah.
Just don't even start the argument. Don't even
Don't,
don't
yeah.
even throw out. And you know what? It got done real fast. And there wasn't a single argument. And at the end, he was like, oh my gosh, this was so much fun. And in my head, I was like, yes, because I really just, and I told him, I was like,
Of course,
yes,
yeah.
because do you realize that like I consciously
Removed myself from this.
removed myself from the management process? And he's like, oh. And so, like now we try to kind of take turns. But this peace, not perfection, I think it's a
Yeah.
great bar to aim for.
Yeah. So part of my job previously with the same organization was I used to teach classes. And one
Mm.
of the classes was how to support your breast milk supply when returning to work. And I did a whole section on like how to make your life easier. And one of them is like, let that shit go. Like
Yeah.
if it truly doesn't matter, like just let that shit go. And so the example I always gave was when Jess and I first got married, we folded towels differently. And I have a very strong opinion on how to fold a towel.
Is it into thirds?
It is into thirds.
Half, half, third, third, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Because
Because
then
otherwise you're just
all
like
the
a
loose ends are tucked
linen.
in. It's thin enough to fit into those tiny
Yes.
ass linen
Yes.
closets.
You
You
can
can
get
stack them
three.
this. Yeah,
Yep. It is the correct
exactly.
way. It
It
is
is
the
the.
correct way.
Thank you, Manager Caitlin. But
You're
anyway,
welcome.
so like it would like irritate me when
Mhm.
Jesse would fold the towels
Into
bifold
fourths. Yeah.
into fourths or
Mm.
into like half and half and then half and then half and then and
Where are you going?
right.
What are you doing?
And so then like I got to a point where like why am like it was like this point of like self-reflection of like
Mhm.
why am I angry?
Mhm.
Like what am I truly upset about? Like I'm upset because the towels don't fit as well as they fit
Mhm.
when I fold them, but they all are in the closet folded. So like just letting that shit go. And so part of that class was always like like literally do some self-reflection and
Yes.
figure out like your expectations of yourself and for the
Yeah.
support people around you
Yeah. Yeah.
because there's a lot of shit that doesn't matter.
Yes. We Hudson, one of his jobs is folding the towels, and I have shown him many, many times the right way to do it. And it does not get done that way.
Yeah,
And then inevitably they don't really fit great. And so then like really it just becomes, and part of it is he's not quite tall enough to like,
sure.
get
Properly
like a
stack.
big stack. So anyway, then like I open the linen closet and they're like stuffed in like between sheets and things because he's like, well, they don't all fit on the shelf. And but
Yeah,
anyway, yes. But moral of the story was like I could
I could
correct
fix
you on
it.
this,
Yeah,
or I could just let it go.
yeah.
I'm just gonna be happy
Because
that
it
you
actually
can.
doesn't matter if a sheet is next to a towel.
It doesn't.
Like, what purpose? I mean, if I can argue a valid reason, then like let's talk about it. But
Right.
there is no argument
It's
in
kind
this
of it
analogy.
it kind of this reminds me a little bit of this concept that my boss taught me like early on. So when I as a marketer, like as a marketing manager, there was a point where I was like the highest ranking marketing person. And then the company I worked for hired this really fantastic CMO that I reported to, and it was like the first time in my career. And so he was like coaching me one day about, and part of my job has always been to like look at the creative work that my team puts together and make sure like it fits brand standards and that
Right.
it like doesn't look like a hot mess and all this stuff. And he gave me this piece of advice and he goes, I will, and likewise, he would often look at my creative work and, have to give me feedback. And he had this phrase and this philosophy that I still like live by today. And basically he was like, when I give my creative critiques, I always think to myself, am I making this better or am I making it different? And if I'm just simply making your work different, then I let it go.
I
Like
love that.
I could tell you that I prefer the text to be like an inch over, but like that does not have the same gravity as like, hey, this headline does not accomplish the goal that this piece needs to, and I need you to rewrite it. And it needs to include these things or whatever. So
Right.
that piece, not perfection, kind of reminds me of that philosophy. And that's sort of
Absolutely.
like even like on a team when I review things, that is always what I live by. It's like, am I just making this different or am I making it better?
Right.
And if
No,
I'm
I
only making
do.
it different, it's not the hill for me to die on today.
Nope.
And
Nope.
we move on.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Um, so this idea sort of dovetails into when we delegate, we can set our expectations up front, but then we just need to let it be. Like we cannot micromanage. So hey, I need you, now that we're done with dinner and I'm taking Nora to dance class, I would like the kitchen to be clean when I get home or by the time I go to bed or whatever it is. That includes the counters, please. And then that's it. I'm not going to micromanage the way you wipe down the counters. I'm not
Yeah.
going to micromanage the way that you choose to load the dishwasher, even if it means that there's like another load that we have to do after. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm going to set my expectations and then I'm going to walk away because you don't want to be micromanaged.
Yeah. So expectations were something uh, that I would say semi recently, Jesse and I finally like got to from like this piece of like, we would get this like buildup of tension. And it was because neither of us were setting clear expectations for
Mm,
each other.
yeah.
Like, and so my expectation was different than his expectation of the same task.
Yep.
And so then one of us would be frustrated
Mm-hmm.
because the expectation wasn't being met. And so, um, in particular, like a time was really like
Mm-hmm.
time was like the thing that needed to be said for us in order to be like a successful team. Because I would say something like, can you bring down the bag upstairs, like the Target bag, because I have to make a return. Can you bring down the Target bag?
Mm-hmm.
So, what I mean is the next time you go upstairs,
I need you to bring that
I
down.
need you to bring that down. What he hears is that
At
at
some
some
point,
point in my life, I need to bring down the Target bag,
it
which
could be
I mean,
in 5 days, and that's totally fine.
right. And so, like, and those, neither of those expectations are wrong or right. Like, they're just different.
Yes.
And so I learned, and he learned that giving, giving each other like a define, like an end game, like
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
just a task, but like, don't forget that Mavis needs to see the vet in the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So then for 4 weeks, that is can be completely removed from my brainscape.
Yep.
And I trust my partner to meet that expectation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the time frame is a really big one. It's funny because I remember when we were going through marriage counseling, that was like one of the things that we discussed because I am sort of like someone who once we get done with dinner, I am just much more present and collected and calm if like we can get done and we just immediately clean up and I'm not sitting down trying to watch whatever TV show thinking about how I got to make sure that like 20 minutes before we need to get the kids ready for bed, I go in and I clean up the kitchen.
Right.
Whereas Eric is like I mean, I guess we didn't have kids going through marriage counseling, but it was the same concept. I was like,
Right.
I can't really enjoy my evening with you when I know that mess is waiting for me,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, I'm just going to get to it at some point, probably right before I go to bed. And that
Right.
is like good enough for me.
Yes.
And it was the idea of like compromising and talking about like, okay, well, here's why it's important for us,
Mm-hmm.
here's
Yeah,
my expectation.
because then you end up like, co- when you compromise, you end up meeting both expectations to some degree because
Right,
neither of you, I mean, I guess if you wanted to say, like, okay, yeah, that isn't that big of a deal, I'll go grab it right now.
right,
But unless it's on the table verbally, for
right,
us, it like just doesn't work. There is a giant brain block when
right.
Jess and I set an expectation for one another and there's not a time frame included.
Yeah. I feel like generally my requests are like very immediate. It's like I'm in the like I am already thinking about what I need to get to next. And for you
Hmm.
to help me, setting me up to get to that thing faster
Yeah,
is very helpful. Whereas Eric is generally like, yeah, his requests feel less like time sensitive
yeah,
sometimes, where it's like, hey, I need to file taxes this weekend. And this is maybe like on Monday. And he's like, so can you make sure you get like
you're
all
done.
your tax documents out of your
Right,
work portal?
right.
And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't need to drop what I'm doing right now to do that. I just need
Right.
to like write a note on stick it on my computer and say, don't forget, send those.
Me, from a personality standpoint, like I said in a previous episode, how like I clean, like it makes literally no sense and it defies all logic. And I just pop around the house. Like that's sort of what I do as like just the human I am. We talk about the notifications. I stop what I'm doing to see why that notification exists. And so, like, for me, like, this, like, popping all over the place is a very normalized, very, like, natural thing.
Yes, state of
Jesse
being.
says, hey, can you get that Target bag from downstairs? And I stop what I'm doing and I go grab the Target bag. But then I unfairly put that expectation on him.
Right,
And then
right.
he's still sitting there scrolling on his phone 10 minutes later. And I'm like, the fuck, bro?
Right.
But like, that's
Get
not
up.
fair.
Get my Target bag.
Like, that's not fair for me
Right, right.
to place that on him because that is my natural instinct.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah,
I
the time thing is 100% a me. Like,
yes.
I need it in order to be okay. Action items.
I I don't know if you know this, but my survival really depends on that Target bag arriving in the
Yes.
next 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah. But literally, there are times where I'm like, I need you to do this in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Because like I need to make sure that my expectations are very, very clear. And then he can always say, I can't accomplish that. And then we
right,
find something else.
right, right.
So that
And
was
I
the other thing was of this conversation of like setting expectations was like also it's okay to like not agree with that expectation and try to find something else.
more often than not, my request gets redelegated out. So I'll be like, "Hey, can you help get Willa ready for bed?" And Eric will be like, "Hudson, take your sister and get her ready for bed." Which, you can kind of debate the
Yeah.
like whatever rightness or wrongness, for lack of a better
Hmm.
phrase,
Right.
about how that goes. But it's funny. Then you do see that play out with like our kids too, because
Yeah.
like we'll be like, Hudson, empty the dishwasher, and Hudson will be like, Nora, could you go empty that dishwasher? And we're like, nope, nope.
Nope.
See, the shit rolls downhill from us to you, but
Right.
it doesn't. It actually does stop at
Right.
our individuals. We don't. Um, but I think, you know, thinking about not micromanaging or like communicating our expectations, also explaining like why, to be
Mhm.
able to be like, hey, I'm in the middle of doing this, whatever it is I'm doing. And in 10 minutes, I need to leave to drop Fiona off at gymnastics. And that's right by Target. So if you could go get the Target bag for
Right.
me, that would, because I want to leave with it in 10 minutes. Like,
Right.
so it's not even like necessarily that you have to like do all of this backstory, but to just be like, hey, I need to leave in 10 minutes. Can you go grab the Target bag for me from upstairs so I can return it when I take Fiona?
Right.
And then most likely they're going to be like, yeah,
Oh
that's,
yeah,
yeah.
that makes sense. Like,
I can put my phone down for a second, go do that, or
yeah,
I can like
I see
pause
that you're
to eat.
making sandwiches right now
Yes.
to eat on the way to gymnastics because we're inevitably always late for everything.
Yes. Yes. So I
So
think
that way
it's
you can be
just,
less late.
well, you know what? There is no solution for that. Unless
No,
my
there
kids can learn to be on time, I am, and as somebody who grew up in a very, like, punctual household, I feel like it kills me a little bit inside, and I'm sure my parents are just like,
this
Where did
bitch.
we go
Where
wrong?"
did we come from? It's probably mom's fault.
It's it's probably the mom.
Oh,
She was
geez.
probably late one time, and now her daughter can never be on time anywhere else
Oh,
and
no.
organized. So, delegating, aim for peace, not perfection, communicate your expectations, help explain the why behind some of the requirements, and like, thinking about I read different books that say, to divide things out by like strengths or preferences, or, to say, maybe you divide out appointments, like you always take the dentist, I always take the doctor type of thing. Um, or if you say like, hey, can you schedule Hudson's dentist appointment? But I need you to also schedule an orthodontist appointment, and that has to be completed prior to the dentist appointment. Like you kind of have to give the context and like
Yes.
explain the requirements so that they're not just like, well, why?
Why do I have to make the orthodontist first?
Right. Or when they're like, how, is there something like, do you want me to do that? So when you're talking about the dentist thing and they're like, well, do you want me to do that? And you're like, no, 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 I'll take care of it. Cause in our heads, we're like, I know the backlog. I know that the orthodontist has to get scheduled because the dentist is waiting on the
Yes.
like scans from the ortho and like, they're tied to get, I don't want to like
Mm.
explain all of that to you. But really, if I was like, hey, no, I don't need you to, or yes, I do, but it hinges on this thing first,
Mm-hmm.
then again, most likely they're going to be like, cool,
Cool.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Which dentist again? No, I'm kidding.
Where's his phone number? They don't have an online scheduling system. What do I do?
um, so those were kind of the big, I feel like, lessons and takeaways that as I reflected on, again, advice I wish I had when I
Yeah.
was a young mom. Um, all things that had we started doing some of this stuff just from the get-go, I think would have radically changed the dynamic in our relationship and kind of the way that I feel about things
Yeah.
sometimes.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah. So that I think is where we come to a stop. I think our takeaway for this
Takeaway?
week is to pick a thing. And again, I love that all of these feel very actionable. Like
Yes.
I could, they feel actionable. They may be easier
They're
said
easier
than
said than done.
done. Um, but maybe you could start just by reminding yourself that there is more than one right way. Doesn't mean you have to accept, but you could start by reminding yourself and like you will progress eventually.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but I think that is our challenge. That's the takeaway that I want us to walk away from is that there is two sides to this coin. For every moment of dad privilege we feel like exists, there is an equal maternal gatekeeping moment that kind of counterbalances it.
Yes.
So that level of self-reflection and kind of being able to go back through some of these things and start to practice them in your relationship, I think is how you maybe help unlearn some of that learned helplessness that we feel like hangs around a little too often.
I'd be curious to know where the self-reflection is from the audience. You know what
Mm,
I mean? Like to see if like the self like if there's any like trend lines. Like I'm getting kind
mm.
of data nerdy,
I feel like there's got to be like an opportunity for like a little poll or something. We're gonna have to
right?
think on this. So stay tuned, and I guess that means we'll have to start a social media channel.
Uh, Sorry about that. But no, wouldn't it be super interesting to
Yes.
see like
Yeah.
where do you feel you gatekeep the most and where do you think dad
Hmm.
privilege is highest in your house? Like I would love to see if there
Hmm.
are patterns.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So be on the lookout for that. By the time this episode publishes, hopefully we'll have a social media
I
channel.
can't promise anything.
I can't either. I mean, it's the wild, wild west here. So,
Yeah.
depending on when this
Crazy.
episode releases, I guess you can like check the show notes and we'll link to it if we
Oh,
have it in the show notes. And if it's not there, you can assume we didn't have time to start it or create the poll.
yeah.
Well, we are interested.
So you can comment.
You could comment. Can you?
I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
Can you? I don't even know. I've got so many things I need to learn right now. You can't comment on a podcast release.
Well, no, but like if they're going on YouTube, right?
Oh, yes. I forgot we were going to publish these on YouTube. So, yes, you could absolutely comment
Okay, I was
down
just
below.
like, I
Good
don't know. See,
reminder.
I don't know enough about podcasts.
As you all
That
can
was
see,
not the expertise I was bringing to this table.
you're bringing the wit and the better articulation.
I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, once again, I like that last night we discussed trying to make like the beginning segment less than 20 minutes, and I was able to shorten it by 3. So we're
Yay!
making progress.
Progress.
Progress, not perfection.
Yes.
So drop a comment. Let us know what you think. We do, in fact, have a way for you to comment. Like, subscribe, share this episode with a friend. Those things, leave a review. They truly do help independent podcasters like us find more people like you to listen and help share our story and bring this conversation to the forefront because it is an important one to be having. So, like, subscribe, leave a review, and we sincerely appreciate it. And we will see you all in a couple of weeks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.